As I said today, I wanted to reflect on the idea of community and the idea of individuality and independence and how those two intersect. Do I need other people? And I wanted to begin by sharing some of my own experiences. I've always struggled with team sports, and I've never thought of myself as particularly athletic. Strategy on the sports field always seemed to elude me, and under the pressure of the moment, I often found myself making terrible strategic choices. One particular memory stands out for me, and that is the day when I was in school doing PE, playing soccer. And on that particular day, I managed to score what they call an own goal, that is, a goal against my own team. And I did it being the goalkeeper. I'd taken possession of the ball. The opposing team had driven the ball down to my end, and I'd got the ball and I was kicking it to one of my team members to then take up to the other goal. And I was standing there with the ball in my hands, considering who I was going to kick to, and there was, right in front of me, one of my own teammates. And with great enthusiasm, I kicked it straight at him, and he was taken completely off guard. And the ball ricocheted off his legs and straight back into my own goal. One of the few times I actually remember enjoying physical education at school was actually cross-country running. This was in high school, it was in Scotland, it was in the midst of winter, and I remember one particular day where it had been snowing, and so we were running through snow and slushy ice. It doesn't sound particularly glamorous, but it was one of the days that I really enjoyed physical education. And I think the reason was that I wasn't being watched by anybody else. I wasn't competing with anybody else. It was me facing my own limitations and doing the best that I could do with no other complications or distractions. As you know, Pam and I have spent a number of years cycling to work. That's been our exercise, the daily commute. And cycling is a solitary activity like cross-country running, and I'm quite happy just to cycle on my own. Nevertheless, one of the things I've noticed is the difference that company makes when I'm cycling. See, when I'm cycling on my own, I'm free to push myself when I'm ready to. I'm free to relax and take it easy when I feel the need. But when I'm with company, I have to push myself perhaps more and perhaps further than I typically would on my own. Now, it's not just cycling with another buddy, and the two of us cycling together, but I notice even as I approach a cyclist going in the same direction as me, or perhaps when one passes me and goes on the same road, on the same route, I notice that I push myself harder just by having someone else present doing the same activity alongside me at the same time. I've often related to people how I enjoyed running my own business. I very much enjoyed the autonomy and the independence. I enjoyed being able to make a decision on, say, a purchase of equipment and not really having to consider anybody else. I didn't have to go and ask permission. I didn't need to consult a team of people. I simply needed to look at my own bank account and ask myself, can I afford this? And then go and make the purchase that I needed. Of course, the downside of running one's own business is that you are very much on your own. There is no backup plan. There's no one to take the pressure off if you're sick. The success or failure of the venture is very much on one's own shoulders. And it has the potential, I found, also to be lonely. And so I very much valued the fact that I worked in a school with a group of other teachers, and I had colleagues with whom I could share my lunch, with whom I could discuss individual children and students, and just share the pressures of the day. Now, very lately, I've been reading a book entitled The Paradoxes of Group Life. And it makes the observation that we tend to oscillate between an unbridled enthusiasm and optimism about the possibilities and potential of community on the one hand, and then despair and frustration at its difficulties on the other. But the authors of this book point out that we need to face community and independence with a more balanced and realistic view. We need to hold simultaneously an understanding of the joys and the frustrations. And living in a community in a healthy way is not to completely lose one's sense of independence and individuality. It's a balance indeed between independence and group identity. For example, we often say 2 heads are better than 1. And when we come together in community, we have the opportunity of generating more ideas. We have the opportunity of looking at a problem from a variety of perspectives and vantage points. We have the opportunity to foster a creativity that we don't access on our own. However, in order to be able to do that, it requires that we actually maintain our individuality. You see, to come and bring a number of perspectives to the table, we must acknowledge each of those individual perspectives. We can't say, oh, yours don't count, because that defeats in itself the whole purpose of coming together as a community. So community and individuality are 2 paradoxical sides of the same coin. Now, Paul and the other apostles, in their letters to the early church, do extol the virtue of living as a community and working together as a community. In Hebrews, we read these words, "And let us consider one another in order to stir up love and good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as is the manner of some, but exhorting one another, and so much more as you see the day approaching." But the thing that they do far more is actually spelling out what it takes to live in community. And these are the sorts of things they say: that we should love one another, that we should submit to one another, give preference to one another, be affectionate, serve, bear each other's burdens, be kind, forgive. You see, living and working as a community takes time and patience and effort. I mentioned earlier I'd share some questions with you, and so here they are. What are the benefits and challenges of community life? What are the benefits and challenges of independence? And how do you balance the 2? I want to share one example of a potential benefit of community life. Several weeks ago now, I read about this gentleman in a news article. He's a resident of Melbourne, and as many of us were, all of us were, locked down for a considerable period of time. And he recognised that he had a problem with fizzy drink, and he wanted to be able to rid himself of that problem and the weight gain and the issues it was leading to in his health. And so what he did was he got onto the well-known app TikTok, and he uploaded a diary, a daily diary of how he was going with fizzy drink. And he talked about his exercise that he was doing, and he was just relating whether he'd had a drink on that day or whether he hadn't. And he used the community of TikTok and people watching his videos to keep himself accountable. And this is one of the really, really important benefits that community can offer us. That whenever we have a goal that we might strive for, it can help to keep us accountable to it. So I wonder what you think are values of living in community. I want to share these words again with you as we finish today. Jesus said, "Where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, I am there in the midst of them." You see, it's not we who create community. It is the presence of the Lord amongst us. See, when Matthew uses these words 2 and 3, he's not talking about a number of people. He's talking about qualities of the Lord present in the people, however many they are, who are there. 2 very often refers to the union of love and wisdom, of goodness and truth in our lives. And 3 refers to love and wisdom united and expressed in use. And it is the very way that Swedenborg defines what it is to be human. So I urge you, friends, to consider the value of community. Feel free to ask those 3 questions during this week, and perhaps even in the chat time after the service. What is it that is beneficial about community, and what is challenging about community? What is beneficial and challenging about being an individual, being independent? And how do we balance those 2 appropriately?